This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Do you ever feel like life is a never-ending series of lessons while you try to find purpose, meaning, and answers? I am Vanessa Fontana, the host of Figuring Shit Out, a podcast where we undertake self-help, coming of age, and healing. As I live my 20s in New York City figuring shit out myself, I've realized that if you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, you don't have a life. You have an act. On Figuring Shit Out, every Sunday, you get to normalize the journey of not knowing and be guided into living your life with more intention and ease.
As, of course, we've all been following the indictment of Donald Trump in Georgia, Matt Gertz of Media Matters has a piece. His latest, Trump's Georgia Indictment, shows the perilous power of the right-wing fever swamp. And let's just share a couple of examples with everybody. Here's Newt Gingrich.
I think what you're seeing tonight is one tree in a forest. And I think we are drifting towards the greatest constitutional crisis since the 1850s and the rise of secession and the Civil War.
There's Newt Gingrich. Here's Mark Levin.
About Georgia and all the rest of it. Every one of these damn phony indictments where they dust off these old laws or they take what is normal actions in the course of an election where you're lobbying state legislatures, where you're claiming elections are wrong, whether they're wrong or not, whether you're raising legitimate things or not. This is an attack on the people. Every indictment is an attack on our freedom, our ability to vote. The Democrats don't care about voting. They care about winning at all costs. The Democrat Party wants to be the monopoly party in this country. It is.
Mark Levin. And then lastly, take a listen to Charlie Kirk.
Just so that we're clear and that we're not totally living in a different alternate universe, you're still allowed to watch cable television that the government doesn't like. Not according to Fani Willis. And what bothers me the most about not Alan Dershowitz, who I think's been great, but some of these legal quacks on television, oh yeah, he's so esteemed, is they're taking this thug seriously. Oh, well, Fani Willis has put together. Don't reject the premise. She's indicting watching cable television.
Charlie Kirk calling Fani, not Fanny, Fani Willis, a thug. Once again, here with us, senior fellow at Media Matters, Matt Gertz. Yeah, they're getting more unhinged, aren't they, Matt? First of all, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay, in spite of it all. It's crazy. But they're using this to make things even murkier, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about the right-wing media in general, the way you win fans, the way you make money is by keeping the audience in a state of constant hysteria, keeping them on the, terrified of what the liberals are going to do to them, and convinced that the only way that they can really know what's happening and what they have to fear is by continuing to listen to people like this. And so what we've seen over the past several months, as all of these indictments have come down, you've seen against Donald Trump, you've seen a real escalation where every time there's a new indictment, a new set of alleged crimes the former president had committed, they need to find a new level to get to, a new degree of fear to try to instill in their viewers and in their listeners. And so we're really, I don't want to say we're maxing out, but we're reaching a very difficult tenor right now, I think, where they're basically talking about civil war, about the possibility of the government coming to your home to get you, and so on and so forth. And just, trying to do everything they can to keep that Republican base from fracturing and from abandoning Donald Trump.
Now, Charlie Kirk obviously feels as if Fani Willis is attacking right-wing cable television. The subtitle to your piece, folks, it's at MediaMatters.org. Trump's Georgia indictment shows the perilous power of the right-wing fever swamp. The subtitle is Why Watching Cable TV and Tweeting Can Now Get You Indicted. So on the one hand, the Charlie Kirks and the Hannitys will say, oh, you're being persecuted for watching our shows. But it also seems to be true, isn't it? If I'm reading this right from you, there's this codependency on Trump and the right-wing cable shows that gave him cover to make up all these lies about everything being stolen, that further enabled probably the conspirators. I mean, it's kind of a interdependent relationship. So if you watch enough cable, then and do the things cable it suggests you do or allows you to be incited by cable, you might get indicted.
Yeah, the point that Charlie Kirk is trying to make is that he claims that the Georgia indictment actually literally criminalized watching television and tweeting. And that is absurd. And it's basically because he's either very stupid or very dishonest. What's going on in this Georgia indictment is it's a racketeering indictment. That is the crime that Trump has been charged with. And in a racketeering indictment, as many legal experts pointed out after idiot conservatives started saying this, you list all of the acts that various participants in the racket made. That doesn't mean that all of those individual things are crimes. They're evidence of the participation in the racket, not specifically crimes in and of themselves. Now, separately from that, we have a rather unique scenario here in which the then president of the United States was spending hours of his time each day watching cable news and tweeting about it. This is not usually what presidents do. They usually, have advisors who are deeply versed in foreign policy and economic policy. But Donald Trump just wanted to watch cable news and get his information that way. And so, what we saw in November and December of 2020 is all of these cable news channels, Fox News, One America News, and Newsmax, telling him exactly what he wanted to hear, which is that there was massive fraud committed during the 2020 election. And that wasn't true at all, but he wanted to hear it. He believed it or pretended to believe it, however you want to cut it. And he embarked upon a major scheme, a conspiracy to overturn the government, to overturn democracy, and to keep himself in office, after losing the election. We now have both a federal and a state prosecution that will determine whether or not those acts were crimes, but they definitely happened. They were what he did. And he did it in part because the people that he was watching on his television were cheering him on.
I guess, though, I want to go ask two questions, but the first question I want to ask is, in this particular instance, yes, they were cheering him on. It was, I guess he was enabling them and they were enabling him to some extent. But which one, the networks, particularly Fox, OAN and what have you, the networks, between the networks and Trump, which one in this instance, in the denying, in the accusation of rigging, which of the two entities, the right-wing media or Trump, which one is Dr. Frankenstein and which one is the monster?
Yeah, Trump led the way on this one. I mean, he immediately after the election, on the early hours after election night, went on television and said that he won and that the election had been rigged.
Right.
And that's why it looked like he was losing. And, from there, you saw all of these different actors run with it and give him ammunition to further those false claims, cook up the conspiracy theories, so to speak, that he ended up, basing his bonkers overturning the election scheme on. So he led the way, and then they gave him, all of the help that they could, and really sort of locked his idea in place for the rest of the Republican base.
Now, but you also acknowledge in your piece, and we all know this well from the Dominion case, the Dominion suit, some of the stuff that these people were saying on television, they didn't even believe themselves, right?
Yeah, that's a major factor, I think, when we're talking about the corruption of Fox News, is that what we learned from this defamation case, that Dominion Voting Systems, an election technology company, levied against Fox, was that Fox hosts and Fox executives thought that Joe Biden had won the election, that there hadn't been substantial voter fraud that could swing the results. But what happened immediately after the election was Fox ended up calling the state of Arizona fairly early in the process. There was a big backlash on the right to Fox doing that, including Donald Trump telling his supporters that they should be watching OAN or Newsmax, Fox's competitors, instead. And Fox, at that point, the executives and hosts who knew that all of this election fraud stuff was nonsense decided that they had to get on board with it anyway, because otherwise the network would lose its audience. And so rather than trying to convince their audience of reality, of leveling with them and telling them the truth about what was going on, they instead played into all of these Trumpian fantasies about election fraud.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like life is a never-ending series of lessons while you try to find purpose, meaning, and answers? I am Vanessa Fontana, the host of Figuring Shit Out, a podcast where we undertake self-help, coming of age, and healing. As I live my 20s in New York City figuring shit out myself, I've realized that if you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, you don't have a life. You have an act. On Figuring Shit Out, every Sunday, you get to normalize the journey of not knowing and be guided into living your life with more intention and ease.
So I guess the question, though, is settle with Dominion. We know the magnitude of that. It even ends up costing Tucker his job. Why renew it? I mean, why would they? Is this also an audience thing? And I guess it's when we get into the business, we know they always try to run anyway. They try to do that. But is this about viewers and audience? Is this about competition with OAN? Why not just leave it alone at this point? Why has Fox not learned?
Yeah, the incentive structure is exactly the same as it was back in late 2020. And so what we see is anytime anyone at Fox moves even the slightest bit away from being purely pro-Trump, Trump makes a big show of condemning the network for not being supportive enough. And Fox needs to be worried about keeping its viewers from leaving for other outlets. And so they respond to that negative attention by trying to become more and more pro-Trump. That's how you end up with Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld joining Sean Hannity in primetime now. Those are very, very pro-Trump people who Fox knows will not insult Trump's audience in any way, and that's why they're in those positions. And so, this, I think, for the purposes of electoral politics, I think it means that we'll see Fox continue to be incredibly supportive of Donald Trump. From the purpose of legal liability, I think this is actually quite bad for Fox, because it's very unclear that they'll be able to avoid doing the exact same thing that just cost them $787 million in settlement.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that is literally, I mean, if me, I'm like, well, maybe I need to come up with another way to make some money here. I mean, it's not like there isn't such a thing as Fox Sports. We're not doing Fox News Channel anymore. We're just going to have a 24-hour sports channel or something, because that's crazy. I mean, that's a lot of money they paid out.
Yep. And it was a big hit for them. It was a huge blow to their profits. But the actual business model requires them to be irresponsible and hope that they can get away with it and somehow skate by. The Dominion case, they didn't. And so, we'll see whether we see more of those going forward. But I think the incentives suggest that they will.
But now, wait a minute, since you said that, I didn't want to go too deep on this, but since you said the business model, I mean, they still don't have any real advertisers anymore, right?
Yeah, so the advertising is a problem for them, especially in prime time. They are doing much worse than they were on that regard, than they were, before Media Matters and other organizations got advertisers to drop off. At the same time, Fox makes most of its money not from advertisers, but from cable carriers. They basically require cable networks to pay $2 a head for being the privilege of sending Fox News out to your cable box. And they're always trying to get more and more out of that. They're the second most expensive cable channel after ESPN in that regard. And so, the big push that we've been making is trying to get the public to tell their cable carriers not to make them pay a huge Fox fee, not to agree to give Fox News a ton of money and then pass that cost on to the consumer at home who doesn't want Fox News in the first place.
So that's what I thought. So I'm still trying to understand the business model, because if you're making most of your revenue from those fees, those service or subscriber fees, okay, whatever you put on the air tomorrow, that doesn't affect those fees, right?
But it doesn't affect the fees. That's correct. So the issue here, though, is because Fox's viewers are so fervent and because its audience is larger than other cable networks, they can go to the cable carriers and say, you need to give us more money, or, we have all of these viewers who will, go nuts over it if you refuse this. And so that creates a sort of bargaining problem for the cable carrier sides. And, we at Media Matters have spun up this campaign, nofoxfee.com, trying to be a counterbalance to that, so that the cable carriers can come back and say, look, we also have all of these other people who are very angry about the prospect of spending even more money for your racist propaganda network. And so, that's, I think, the situation we're in right now.
So between Fox and all of their viewers and that being used as leverage to keep the fees up, with all of those people involved in that, that's not, Fox and its viewers wouldn't comprise a RICO conspiracy? I'm just kidding. I'm just thinking through this, y'all. That's wild, though. That's really wild, y'all. That's it. But anyway, but so I guess then what Fox is prepared to do, if they stay on this track, and they obviously will, I mean, they're never gonna, are they, provide an opportunity for any other Republican in the presidential primary to really get any traction.
We just did a big study on this, actually. We looked at, in the months of June and July, we looked at all of the interviews and all live event airtime that Fox and OAN and Newsmax had given to all of the different Republican candidates.
Right.
And what we found was that Fox is giving more of that candidate airtime to Donald Trump than any other candidate. But they are, bringing on and sometimes airing events from a bunch of other candidates as well. Newsmax and OAN, on the other hand, overwhelmingly are providing that airtime to Donald Trump on a much larger scale than Fox has. And so that's, I think, the tricky position for Fox, as we've been talking about this business model, is they're being pro-Trump, but there are these other networks competing with them that are being even more so. And what that does is it sort of incentivizes them to move more and more Trumpy, because otherwise they're going to get attacked by Trump for not being supportive enough. Because he'll say, look at what OAN and Newsmax are doing. Why aren't you doing that? So that's the tricky situation that they're in right now.
Is Fox really losing viewers to OAN and Newsmax? How are they doing in terms of viewership? And are OAN and Newsmax getting ad revenue that Fox isn't getting?
Not as such. I mean, I think Newsmax saw a bit of a bump, especially right after Tucker Carlson left Fox. And Fox saw a big ratings decline. They've made some of that back, over the last few weeks as time has passed, and they rolled out their new evening lineup, but still well under what they were doing, in years past. I mean, Tucker Carlson Times was getting 4 million viewers, and other shows were doing, comparably 3 million and above. Now, if these shows get 2 million on that's a good night. That's still better than MSNBC or CNN do, but the gap there is closing as well. So I think we have seen some drop off. I'm not quite sure exactly where it's gone. I don't think it's going to other cable news networks. I think it's going to other right-wing media outlets, like the Daily Wire and streamers, or people who are just consuming less news altogether and are, tuned into Netflix or what have you.
Hey, I'm Kat, mom of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company setting a new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and thinking, what's in this stuff? All I found were vitamins high in heavy metals and lacking in the very essential nutrients we need. So we scoured the world for the best quality ingredients, backed by clinical studies, third-party tested, and Ritual's Essential Prenatal was born. Join our family of skeptics with 40% off your first month when you visit ritual.com/podcast.
Meanwhile, I'll come back to that, but I want everyone to hear one more clip we have from Sean Hannity. Take a listen to this, folks.
Which is, I don't believe any Republican can get a fair trial in Georgia, Fulton County, with predominantly Democrat, or New York City, 12% voted for Trump, D.C., another venue, horrible for him. So I think Professor Dershowitz is right saying, yeah, we're likely going to see convictions, and then the trick is going to be to overturn it. Here's the problem. The trials are likely to take place next year, in an election year. The appeals will take place post that election. So that won't be in the voters' minds. And that raises the whole issue of whether or not, this is fair to this country and to Donald Trump and to everybody if you have the election but don't have an opportunity to have the appeal.
So, and he also, talked about, the need to try to figure out a way to overturn it. The trick is going to be to win the election and then try to overturn whatever's decided here. So is Hannity auditioning to return as his role as de facto chief of staff, or has that really ever changed?
Oh, I mean, I think he's certainly still in communication with Trump and giving him as much political advice as he can.
Right.
And yeah, if Donald Trump is back in the White House, Sean Hannity is going to see his influence increase again. He'll effectively be chief of staff just as like he was. And once again, we'll have a president in the White House watching Fox News for clues about what to do in U.S. domestic and foreign policy, which is not an ideal situation.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Nothing seems to have changed with regards to the way right-wing media is covering this. Media Matters, as always, is all over it. Check them out, MediaMatters.org. Always good to have our senior fellow at Media Matters, Matt Gertz, with us. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So when is the debate next week?
It's Wednesday night. And
thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.